It's been a minute since I found a Danelle video to uh, go through. Looks like she's thinking here. So I don't know the content of this one. We'll follow it as we go, and I like to do my reactions as we go. It's not fair to, you know, that way I can show I know some things off the top of my head, but this one might take a little research. Let's see what she's got to say.
Made, I want to correct just a few things. They told us, Jimmy Patterson told us on the day of the memorial for Devin and Damon, that they had found skin cells underneath Darlie's fingernails.
She's correct. I've heard that for the longest time. I think I heard it from another person that was on the support side that they, on the way there, they stopped. Uh, Jimmy Patterson wanted to meet them, and he met them at the Home Depot right before they got there. And he did tell this story. He sure did.
He said that to our face. I watched him say that. I know 100% that he said that, without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what was said. However, whenever he was questioned about it, he said that they did not collect anything from her fingernails and that it was never attempted.
Right. They didn't collect anything from her fingernails. So what he did was he gaslit them. He was looking for some kind of response from her when he told her that, hey, we got we got this stuff. Police are allowed to lie just like criminals are. It's like omitting things from statements. Like I asked my husband for a separation that night. They're allowed to do that. So yeah, he charged her up. But here's the thing. Why does it make no sense to take uh, samples from underneath Darlie's fingernails? Why? Because he never states touching the intruder. Ever. They should have knew that Jimmy Patterson was gaslighting them with that question. He was hoping to get some kind of weird reaction before they went over there and they were being recorded. That's police tactic. They're allowed to do it. Jimmy Patterson did not break the law by putting that urn there. He did not.
Why was that? Because she had no fingernails. Darlie is a fingernail biter. She's always bit her fingernails, so she usually had fake nails on, but she had broken her fake nails.
So wouldn't Darlie have known right away that he was full of shit because she didn't touch the intruder? Nowhere in her story did she say that.
Off. A couple of those fake nails had been broken off earlier in the week, and so she had just removed them and had no fingernails other than just the fingernail bed, but nothing was protruding from that. So maybe they did not collect anything at all, under the assumption there would be nothing there. But could there still have been something there? Sure, absolutely.
How? She didn't say anything about making contact with the intruder. She never once. So, she said she was fighting, but she didn't say anything about making contact with him. Fighting how?
Absolutely. Do we know what happened to anything of that? Nope. It's not documented anywhere that they actually collected fingernails, clipped her fingernails, scraped her fingernails. None of that is ever documented.
It's also not documented by Darlie that she ever laid hands on the intruder. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe they should have. If they can't get them from her, that's a different story. Maybe they could have looked right at her hands and told that they wouldn't be able to get anything from under that, like she's explaining here.
Documented. Okay. So was it done? Nope. Not according to their records. Should it have been done and attempted even if there was no nails? Yes, 100%. DNA was really young back then. The process of collecting it and what you could get from finger.
That'd be about like them going upstairs to test the water in the bathtub. Why wouldn't they do that? It is a crime scene, right? Well, why wouldn't they test the water in the bathtub? She didn't say the intruder took a bath. Duh. Lots of things that they look at and tell that they weren't going to be able to get anything from. Should they now, if they attempted it and didn't get anything, there wouldn't be any record of it. You only get a record of what's been done, not what's been attempted.
Fingernails was still very early in that process. What else did you say? No hair or fiber on the boys who were stealing them either, and that's wild. Well, first of all, they weren't being kidnapped, so the person may not have actually ever touched their skin. They actually may have only touched them with that sharp object.
And that's what we expected for the intruder with Darlie. He didn't touch her except for with the knife, right? She didn't touch him at all. Why would they waste the resources on when she said, she didn't say anything about touching him.
So for the boys to have had any DNA underneath their fingernails, who knows? They did bag their hands, but nothing was ever reported as being positive for DNA under either of the boys' fingernails. We know that they weren't fingerprinted, which also, in my opinion, is absolute crap, because in a homicide, you should fingerprint every single person in that scene.
Each scene is different. One of the main things that they will print someone that is deceased in a scene is to be so they can be identified. Devin and Damon were both identified. I believe she's correct here. The medical examiners are responsible for complete, accurate documentation of the deceased. That includes fingerprints. Should fingerprints have been taken there? Yes, very much so. Does that make Darlie guilty or innocent? Nope.
Including those victims, even if they're children. I know that for identifying missing persons, fingerprints on children are worthless because they've never been fingerprinted before. So to identify them from scratch, fingerprints are pointless. So I understand why Dr. Townsend says she did not fingerprint them for that reason, but she should have fingerprinted them because they were victims of homicide. That's why they should have been fingerprinted, not to identify them. We knew who.
I would have to agree with her here. If it was me in that crime scene, I would have fingerprinted them for various reasons. Well, how about this? 85J. They should have fingerprinted. They're right, but that doesn't make Darlie innocent or guilty. I agree with her on this, though.
They were. So, to answer or address this statement, one, Jimmy Patterson said that they took nail scrapings. He told us to our face they had DNA underneath Darlie's fingernails. It was a bold-faced lie.
Right, and he's allowed to do that. And see, because when Darlie said she didn't kill her kids, to them, that was a bold-faced lie. The police are allowed to use tactics because criminals do, like lying and staging crime scenes and deceiving. So him stopping them and saying we found this under that means nothing to me. It doesn't show guilt or innocence. He wanted some kind of reaction out of her. Maybe he was gearing her up for a confession. I don't know. But she sure looked relieved at that silly steering party. She looked relieved. That's the best way to explain it. Relief.
They never even attempted. The nurses at the hospital started to wipe Darlie's hands down, and they immediately realized that they needed to have her processed for DNA and evidence. They called Jimmy Patterson. They folded up that washcloth that they had used on her hands and preserved it in a baggie, and it was never collected by the police and was never processed for DNA. So that's on the police department. That's Jimmy Patterson's fault.
Well, none of us is there. What fault is there of that? I don't get your point.
Or neighbor's fault, or whoever was making those calls. I don't know if Jimmy Patterson was in the office when the when the hospital called and asked about that. But regardless, they should have known. Collect the towel, get to the facility, the hospital, and process her hands for DNA. They did not do that while the family was there. There was never an officer present in her room while we were there, scraping fingernails, cutting fingernails, clipping fingernails, wiping fingernails, nothing. That would have been done if a rape kit had been collected. They would have also taken pictures of her entire body.
Again, with the rape kit, she's going to say that a test wasn't done. A nurse, all right, they looked to see if it looked like she had been assaulted. They didn't find any deposits in that area. So had they found signs of what looked like uh, forced sex, they would have sent her over to Parkland to complete a full rape assessment. They did a primary exam of it, and in that exam it says they found nothing to indicate no fluids, no nothing to indicate anything sexual had gone on. So they didn't refer it over to Parkland.
Body, which they didn't do. They also would have combed through her hair and preserved any evidence found in her pubic hair, head hair, whole body hair. All of it would have been.
They should have, but she never said she was raped. We do know from medical records, that Darlie had suffered a bit of herpes, and that at the time of the murders, she definitely had her Brazilian on. Uh, I don't think they would say they didn't see any evidence of rape. If they'd saw fluid, maybe they would have went further, but they didn't in that initial uh, rape exam.
Searched and combed and processed. None of that was done. So, yeah, the evidence collection was very shoddy. It was not a well-oiled machine. The Rowlett Police Department had worked very few homicides.
No, it wasn't a very well-oiled machine, but it was well-oiled enough for common sense and logic to dictate to the average American that Darlie Routier had committed this crime. There are way more people that believe she is guilty than there are that believe she is innocent. And if they believe that she's innocent, they can't stand on it very long. They can't stand on it very long because they sure can't debate a non supporter. None of them. Why is that?
The main officer, first arriving officer, had only been to one other child death and 4 or 5 homicides total.
Well, they didn't have time to stop and look at the most experienced police officers to get them out there. The very first day that you go from the academy through your training with your training officer, the very first day that you're out by your own, you are learning. They are learning. It's always a learning experience for any police officer. I have 20 years. Talk to any police officer who's been on. It's a learning experience every day.
So it really was a very shoddy investigation.
Why? Because Waddell had never been to another scene like that one? No, you don't expect scenes like that to happen. There's a couple things that Waddell did that was really, really good. One is he didn't go all the way out in that garage and leave them in that room alone. You know. And two was he drawed his gun on Darren and dragged him back in the house. Shoddy. It was a shoddy murder.
So that's that. I hope that clarifies some of that. I don't know. Some people look for reasons to fight the fact that she could be innocent.
And you look for reasons to fight the fact that she is guilty. Jimmy Patterson stopping them and getting under nails or all that Has nothing to do with her being guilty or innocent. The behavior of the Rowlett Police Department, although they made some mistakes, but the evidence is there still. They didn't make enough mistakes to mess up the evidence.
It's like you go through these mental gymnastics trying to justify your thought process that she's guilty, but you're avoiding all of the things that support her innocence.
Take that and turn it around. You're going through all these mental gymnastics in your head to provide answers as to why your sister is innocent. And you're not listening to anything that tells you why she's guilty. Nothing.
And I really think that until you can explain the fingerprints that are unidentified but are identifiable. And
I can explain those. She's had 30 fucking years to identify them. That's how I explain them. The burden of proof is... I mean, how come you guys haven't got all your money together while your mom's out buying Corvettes and shit like that with Robbie Key and get them fingerprints done? Why can't you?
until you can explain the fingerprint in blood in the crime scene that is not Darlie's or anybody else on the scene, until you...
I can explain it. It's unidentifiable. That's why your family hasn't had it identified yet. That's up to you at this point. You guys aren't broke. You can get it done. Cirilla told me they got a hold of Chad Patterson's fingerprints and compared it, and it wasn't him. So why can't they do the same with 85J? You can have it run. We keep telling you, run the prints. Run it. One thing the family knows is if they run the prints and it doesn't come back to, if it does come back to Darlie or someone in the family, then they're done with 85J. So let's leave it dangling there.
You can explain to me how those bruises got on Darlie.
Yeah, I wish you could explain to us how those bruises got on Darlie. I go with what Dr. Santos said. I mean, here's this, like I said, this intruder must have been a fucking octopus. Because he's slashing her throat, poking her shirt 4 times, poking her chest, stabbing her arm, scratching her face, and beating the fuck out of her arms. And nobody heard nothing. She didn't wake up till he went away. She didn't wake up till he went away. How many times would those arms have to be hit to come up with the bruising that appear to be blunt force trauma? Somebody hits me 1 time in my fucking arm, I'm waking up. So, like I said, this intruder's he's stabbing, slicing, poking, putting a gag in her mouth, sometimes they say, beating her arms, trying to rape her, all at the same time. Fucking octopus.
None of that matters. Explain to me how you can get a sock with blood on it down the alley when, according to the state's blood expert, she was injured in between the boys. According to the blood expert, Tom Bevel says that his theory is Devin was attacked first, Darlie was attacked second, then Damon was attacked after Darlie. Because the way the blood...
That's not Bevel's theory.
falls, the way the blood has patterned and overlapped each other. That's their theory. That's what is indicated by Tom Bevel. So if you believe in Tom Bevel's testimony and you're going to convict her based on blood spatter and or lack of blood spatter, then you must also take into account that he makes it difficult, impossible for Darlie to have put that sock 75 yards down the alley.
Why? She got back and forth all over that kitchen without leaving bloody footprints back and forth from that sink. What was it, 7 or 8 times? Darren said 6 or 7 times that she came back and forth. She didn't leave any bloody. She left 1 bloody footprint going away from the sink.
So that's that. Sorry, I got on a tangent. One thing leads to another. Okay, have a good day. Hey, thank you for your questions too. It's great discussion. I really, really, really appreciate these kind of comments because it allows for open discussion.